child can grow up in a house full of people and still feel completely alone. Not because they were hit, not because they were yelled at, but because no one noticed when they were sad. No one asked what they were feeling. No one cared about the person they were becoming inside. And that child, they're walking around right now as an adult, wondering why everything feels so hard. I'll show you exactly what emotional neglect does to the brain in the next 20 seconds. Why it matters. Because emotionally neglected children don't just get over it. They develop patterns that sabotage their relationships, their careers, and their ability to feel genuinely happy. Here's what happens. When a child's emotions are consistently ignored, dismissed, or minimized, their brain learns a brutal lesson. Your feelings don't matter. Not once, not dramatically, but 1,000 small moments. You come home excited about a school project. No one asks. You're scared about something. No one notices. You're sad, and everyone just keeps watching TV. Psychologists call this emotional attunement failure. Your caregivers weren't attuned to your internal world. Picture a 7-year-old who just lost a pet. They're devastated, but mom says, "It's just a hamster, you'll get over it," and goes back to her phone. The child learns, my pain is an inconvenience. The brain starts suppressing emotional signals. It treats your own feelings like spam email. Delete. Ignore. Move on. You become emotionally numb to yourself. Start naming 3 emotions you feel each day out loud, even if you're alone. Retrain your brain that feelings are information, not noise. But here's where it gets worse. Neglected kids become little adults way too fast. Because if no one's taking care of your emotional needs, you learn to not have any. You become the easy child, the one who never complains, never needs anything. Studies show emotionally neglected children develop compulsive self-reliance. They'd rather suffer in silence than ask for help. A 10-year-old is struggling with homework and anxiety about school, but they see their parents are stressed, tired, busy. So they figure it out alone. They always figure it out alone. Fast forward 20 years, they're burning out at work, refusing to delegate, convinced that needing support makes them weak. What it does to the brain, the prefrontal cortex goes into overdrive while the limbic system, your emotional center, atrophies. You become a human doing machine with no idea how to just be. Practice asking for help with something small once a week, even if you don't need it. Retrain your nervous system that connection doesn't equal danger. And speaking of danger, emotionally neglected kids develop a 6th sense, not for supernatural things, for mood shifts. You learn to read the room before you even entered it. You became an emotional detective, constantly scanning for signs of anger, disappointment, withdrawal. Because in a neglectful home, emotional safety is unpredictable. A child walks into the kitchen, mom's doing dishes. But the way she's clanking the plates, that means she's upset. The child immediately switches into fix-it mode, being extra good, extra helpful, extra invisible. The child never relaxes. Your amygdala, the fear center, stays permanently activated. You're always in scan mode, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is why you feel exhausted around people even when nothing bad is happening. Practice grounding exercises that tell your nervous system you're safe right now. 5 senses check-in, deep breathing, physical touch. But it doesn't stop there. Here's the thing nobody talks about. If you grow up in a home where feelings aren't named, discussed, or validated, you never learn the language of emotions. You feel something, but you can't identify it. You can't express it. You can't process it. Psychologists call this alexithymia, the inability to identify and describe emotions in yourself. Someone asks, "How are you feeling?" And you freeze, not because you don't want to answer, but because you genuinely don't know. You might say fine or tired, because those are the only emotion words that feel safe. The insula, the part of your brain that processes internal body states, doesn't develop properly. You lose the connection between what you feel physically and what it means emotionally. You become disconnected from yourself. Use an emotion wheel. Seriously. Start by identifying if you feel good, bad, or neutral. Then work toward more specific words. It sounds simple. It's not. And here's where it gets really painful. Emotionally neglected kids learn early. Love is conditional, not through what's said, through what's noticed. Good grades, praise, sports trophy, attention, perfect behavior. Finally, someone sees you. So you build your entire identity around achieving because it's the only way to feel valuable. A teenager brings home straight A's. Their parents finally smile, finally seem proud. But when they try to talk about feeling lonely at school, crickets. The lesson is clear. Your accomplishments matter. You don't. You develop an external locus of self-worth. Your value isn't inherent. It's earned through performance. This is why successful people who came from neglect often feel like frauds, because deep down, they're still that kid trying to earn love. Practice self-compassion when you fail at something, intentionally. Mess up a small task, and then speak to yourself kindly. Rewire the belief that you're only valuable when you're perfect. But here's the pattern that destroys relationships. When you've been emotionally starved as a child, you enter adulthood ravenous. You meet someone who shows you basic kindness, basic attention, and you think it's love, because you have no baseline for what healthy emotional nourishment looks like. Studies on attachment show that emotionally neglected individuals often develop anxious or avoidant attachment styles, constantly seeking validation or completely shutting people out. Someone texts you, "Good morning," for a week straight, and you're already planning your future together. Not because you're naive, but because you're so starved for consistent emotional attention that crumbs feel like a feast. What it does to the brain, your reward circuitry, the dopamine system, becomes hypersensitive to any sign of affection. You're literally addicted to the smallest gestures of care. This makes you vulnerable to manipulation, breadcrumbing, and toxic relationships. Create a list of what consistent, healthy emotional care actually looks like. Study it, memorize it, so you can recognize the difference between real nourishment and emotional scraps. And then there's the defense mechanism nobody sees coming. You're starving for emotional connection. But when someone actually tries to get close, you panic. Because intimacy feels like exposure, vulnerability feels like danger. So you shut down. You go cold. You disappear. Psychologists call this the avoidant response. Your nervous system learned that emotional openness leads to pain, so it protects you by numbing you out. You're dating someone who's genuinely kind. They ask how you're really doing. And instead of opening up, you feel this wave of discomfort. So you deflect, make a joke, change the subject, create distance. Later, you can't even explain why you did it. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates a freeze response. It's the same mechanism that shuts down a trapped animal. You're not being cold on purpose. You're having a trauma response. Practice micro-vulnerabilities. Share one small true thing about how you feel. Build tolerance slowly. You're not broken, you're untrained. But wait, it gets more complicated. Emotionally neglected people often become everyone else's emotional support. You're the friend people call at 2 a.m. The coworker who listens to everyone's problems. The partner who always puts their needs second. Not because you're naturally selfless, because you learned that your value comes from being needed. You spend 3 hours talking a friend through their breakup. You give perfect advice. You're emotionally present. But when you're struggling, you don't even think to reach out. Because some part of you believes you're not allowed to need the same support you give. You develop what's called codependent neural pathways. Your brain literally lights up more when you're helping others than when you're caring for yourself. You become addicted to fixing other people because it's the only time you feel worthy. Set a boundary with one person, just one. Practice saying, "I don't have the capacity for that right now." Watch how your world doesn't fall apart. And here's the one that lives in your body. Your body keeps the score, always. Emotionally neglected individuals report higher rates of chronic pain, digestive issues, tension headaches, and unexplained physical symptoms. Because the emotions you couldn't express as a child, they're stored in your body. You get a stomachache before social events, tension headaches when you have to set a boundary, chest tightness when someone gets too close emotionally. You think it's random? It's not. It's your body trying to communicate what your mind learned to ignore. Chronic emotional suppression keeps your nervous system in a state of allostatic load, constant low-level stress that manifests physically. Your body is literally screaming the feelings you won't let yourself feel. Movement, not exercise, expressive movement. Dance alone in your room. Shake. Let your body release what your mind has been holding. It sounds weird. It works. But here's the belief that runs the show. Deep down, beneath every pattern, every defense mechanism, every self-sabotage is one belief: I am not enough. Not because someone said it, because no one showed you otherwise. You weren't seen. You weren't celebrated. Your inner world was treated as irrelevant. And children are egocentric. They don't blame their parents. They blame themselves. You achieve something incredible, a promotion, a creative project, a personal milestone, and instead of feeling proud, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel like a fraud, because if you were truly valuable, your parents would have noticed you the first time. Right? This becomes your core schema, the fundamental belief through which you filter every experience. You don't just think you're unworthy. Your brain processes reality through that lens. Every compliment gets dismissed. Every achievement gets minimized. Every relationship feels temporary. Therapy, specifically schema therapy, or EMDR. This belief is too deep for surface-level fixes. You need to go to the root and reparent that neglected child inside you. And speaking of relationships, you desperately want close relationships, and you're terrified of them. You want someone to see you, and you'll do anything to stay hidden. You crave emotional safety, and you sabotage it the moment it appears. This is the intimacy paradox of emotional neglect. You're caught between two opposing nervous system states. You're in a healthy relationship. Your partner is consistent, loving, emotionally available, and you keep picking fights, or withdrawing, or finding flaws, or creating drama. Not because you don't love them, because closeness feels wrong, like a language you don't speak. Your attachment system is disorganized, simultaneously seeking and fearing connection. You're stuck in approach avoidance conflict, which creates massive internal stress. Communicate the paradox. Tell your partner, "I want closeness and it scares me." Naming it reduces its power. And find a therapist who specializes in attachment. But there's one more pattern that determines everything. Most people start figuring out who they are in their teens and 20s. Emotionally neglected people start in their 30s, or 40s, or later, because when you grow up disconnected from your own emotions, preferences, and needs, you have no idea who you actually are. You've spent your whole life being who you needed to be to survive. The easy kid, the successful one, the helpful one. But underneath, you're a stranger to yourself. Someone asks what you want for dinner, and you genuinely don't know, not because you're indecisive, but because you've spent so long prioritizing everyone else's preferences that you've lost touch with your own. Multiply that by every decision, every preference, every life choice. What it does to the brain, your sense of self, which develops through mirroring and validation in childhood, remains underdeveloped. You have weak interoception, awareness of internal states, and poor self-concept. You become whoever the situation needs you to be. Start small. What's your favorite color? Food, song. Build your sense of self like you're meeting yourself for the first time. Because you are. So here's what emotional neglect actually does. It doesn't leave visible scars. It doesn't create dramatic trauma stories. It just quietly teaches you that your internal world doesn't matter. And from that one lesson, everything else follows. The emotional numbness, the overfunctioning, the fear of intimacy, the physical symptoms, the chronic feeling that something is wrong with you. But here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. You adapted to survive an environment that couldn't meet your emotional needs. Those adaptations made sense then. They just don't serve you now. The good news? Every single one of these patterns can be rewired. Your brain is neuroplastic. Your nervous system can learn safety. Your sense of self can be rebuilt. But it requires one thing: acknowledging that the neglect happened. Not to blame your parents, not to play victim, but to finally give that child inside you what they needed all along: to be seen. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. If you made it this far and recognized yourself in these patterns, you have two choices. You can keep scrolling, keep pretending you're fine, keep running the same loops that have kept you stuck. Or you can do the uncomfortable thing, actually deal with it. That means therapy. That means sitting with feelings you've avoided your whole life. That means learning to tolerate the discomfort of being truly seen. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to notice you're struggling and fix it for you. That's the whole problem, remember? So if you want different results, you have to do different things. Start small. Start today. And if this video helped you understand yourself better, don't just watch and forget. Save it. Share it. Come back to it when you need the reminder that you're not broken. You're just carrying something heavy. And maybe it's time to put it down.